All right, it's Thursday night. My two buddies here to talk Clemson baseball. JP Priester, all ClemsonTigers.com. Casey the Beef Cregan. Casey, where are you tonight? Are you home?
I am. I'm on Defusky Island. Yes, sir.
Nice.
With internet.
With internet. That helps. We were wondering earlier, and you told us, you gave us the tech secret. Turn the sound up on the computer, and it helps once in a while. Hey, fellas, at least since the last time JP and I got together, Clemson's won 4 baseball games, 3 of those over North Carolina State in a sweep, which shocked everybody. I know JP and I were concerned last week. We thought Clemson would be lucky to get out of there with one. Some timely hitting, some long balls, some decent pitching from time to time. Clemson comes out with three. And maybe even more important than that, they beat Kennesaw State, which, is an average team, but gave Clemson a run for the first couple of innings. Tigers are 4-0 since we last spoke, JP Priester, 26-16 on the season. And after starting the ACC 2-7, they're now 9-9. They've turned it around and gone 7-2 in the last 9. Team's on a roll.
Yeah, they have turned it around in a hurry. Since that Wake Forest series, they've lost 3 times. This is a team that's playing really good baseball. They're getting pretty solid pitching for the most part. I'm not saying it's been dominant or perfect by any stretch, but it's been solid. It's been mostly consistent, but mostly they have been getting timely hitting. And they are batting 300 as a team right now, and that's nothing to sniff at or whatever, however you want to say it. That's a pretty telling number. I think you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think about half a dozen guys hitting over 300. Cam Canarella keeps plugging right along. Billy Amick's been a huge part of this turnaround. Just got a lot of guys that are playing well right now.
Beef, I know you've been on the road for a couple of weeks. We were just talking before the show. You were in Mississippi watching the Mississippi State at the Dude, and you were on the road last week. How much have you seen of this resurgence of the Clemson baseball team?
Oh, I've watched a ton. Actually, I was very fortunate that the wedding last week was in a good time frame for me, so I was able to watch most of the Friday night game, most of the Saturday game, and I listened to the entire Sunday game. So, what a great couple days to go up to NC State and Raleigh and win and sweep that series. The one thing I've been saying on this show and probably throughout my life is consistency. I think the one thing that Clemson had missed, especially under Monty, and we love Monty, was that consistent lineup that has been thrown out there. And I know Monty was tinkering because he was trying to find the right group. It just really feels right now that now 1 through 9 who's going out there every day, and you now know who's going out Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're not at the Benson, Koch, and Vining level of pitching, but it's consistent. You know what you're going to get, and they're getting out there. I really thoroughly enjoying watching this club, especially now that they're so successful the last few weeks.
Well, Jonathan Hall brought it up here in the comments, and we're going to talk about it. I mentioned it to JP when I reminded him about the show today. Playoffs. Don't talk about playoffs, but we're going to talk about playoffs. I think we all three were surprised, and we talked about this pre-show too. We were all three surprised when the D1 baseball regional forecast came out there, and I was looking. I think JP, you were too. I was looking in the first 4 out category or the next 4 out or whatever they had there at the bottom. I didn't see Clemson. I was like, well, dang, they're not even the first. They're 22nd in the RPI, and they're not even first 4 or second 4 out. Well, that's because they placed them number 2 in the Conway Regional behind Coastal and placed them in there with Davidson and Wofford. Completely shocked for me, a 26-16 team. They are, of course, 22 in the RPI, and that helps. Clemson fans were so frustrated with the basketball net ranking, and here you are with the RPI that's helping the Tigers out. Your thoughts on that placement in that regional, JP?
Yeah, I'm like you. I started looking in the first 4 out and then the first 4 in and didn't see them. And I was like, wow. So I started looking at 4 seeds and 3 seeds. And next thing you know, there they are, a 2 seed. I could absolutely get on board with them being in Conway. I doubt it plays out that way. A lot of baseball to be played still. And, the schedule does not get any easier. You still got to go up to BC, and like Jonathan says right here, this team has shown in the past they don't do well in the cold. We'll see if Eric Bakich can change that thinking. He coached in Michigan a long time, used to playing in the cold weather. Maybe they go up there with a different mindset. But I think it is time to, I got killed by one of my buddies for saying I'd be happy getting 1 out of 3 in Raleigh last weekend. I think it's time to start adjusting expectations. This team's now 500 in ACC play. I said before the season I thought they should be a regional team. I still think that. If they don't make a regional, I think it's a I'm not going to say a failure of a season, but I think it's a disappointing season. I think Clemson should always be in a regional. I think the talent's there, and I think that you're starting to get guys healthy again, and even more importantly, you've got these pitchers in the roles that they are supposed to be in. You've got those kind of things figured out now. You got Ryan Ammons on the back end. A guy nobody's even talking about, Rob Hughes, is back, and he's been absolutely dominant since coming back. I know Jackson Lindley didn't pitch well Tuesday night, but he's back after missing a few weeks. So he's starting to get guys healthy, and you getting the roles figured out for some of those pitchers, and it is paying dividends right now.
Beef, your take on the projected 2 seed in Conway?
I love it. I think it's just nice to be back in the conversation, although I do agree with Coach Hall there about a lot of baseball left. At BC, you're playing. Then you go to Louisville next week after the week off for exams, and you at Coastal, at Virginia Tech for 3. It's not last year's Virginia Tech team, but it's still a pretty serviceable Virginia Tech team. Then you have Upstate, who has given Clemson fits the last couple of years, and then you end the season with North Carolina, a team BC just swept. But they're always good there. So there's a lot of baseball left, but it's nice to be in the conversation, because I think in March and early April we weren't talking about being even in the conversation. So it's nice that their success on the field the last few weeks is now translating into some notice from the national pundits.
For a while there, I was wondering if they were going to make the ACC tournament, right? When they were 2-7 and had to travel to Florida State. It was sketchy there for a minute. JP, you touched on something that I have been saying throughout the season, and Casey can vouch for this. I texted this the other day, that I think that Bakich and Belanger are much better at knowing when it's time to take a pitcher out to make a move than the previous regime was. They would leave a guy in there too long, or they would take him out too soon, and the next guy would get roughed up. But I think these two know what they're doing when they take a pitcher out, and they know who to bring in. As you said, they know the roles much better, it appears.
I can't remember thinking one time to myself all season long that a guy had been left in too long. Maybe I did, but if I did think that, I can't remember it off the top of my head. And I'd rather you come get a guy out and give him the quick hook than leave him in a little bit too long and he get killed. And maybe we see a quick hook every now and then, but it's nothing that I think has been overly, how can you say it, done too often.
Yeah.
I think that they have a very good pulse on knowing when to go get a guy and when to leave a guy in there and let him work out of his own jam, or however you want to describe it. I think that is one of the spots this coaching staff has excelled in so far. They have been incredible when it comes to deciding when it's time to make a change, go get a guy. And especially over this past month or so, knowing who to bring in at that opportune time.
Yeah, what I can remember, and it wasn't a game situation, it was more that I felt sorry for him, was Olenchuk against South Carolina. As home run after home run went over that wall. Like I said, it didn't have a bearing on the outcome of the game, but it was mainly just, I was like, get that guy out of there before his confidence gets ruined. And he's back on it now, by the way. Olenchuk's doing really well. Beef, your take on what this coaching staff has done with the pitching staff?
Yeah, I think even Jimmy Belanger. I used to be able to say it. Even his visits are good. A lot of times, especially with what we saw in the past, and maybe even what led to Jack and Kevin O'Sullivan back in the day, they weren't going to come out 2-0. They were going to wait till the batter was done, and then they'd come out and kind of talk to him there. He doesn't care. Olenchuk got himself a little bit of a jam the other day with 2 outs and then gave up 2 straight hits, and it was 1-0 on or 2-0 on the next batter. Here comes Jimmy out to the mound to just kind of calm him down. He gets out of the inning. I mean, I think even the visits are very well planned. I think I mean, we're looking at we got roses in our eyes and we got orange colored glasses these last few weeks. Winning breeds excitement and kind of blinds us from any sort of coaching issues. So, and we're just kind of on the flip side. It just seems like right now they're pushing all the right buttons.
Jonathan's helping us out here. Bellinger.
That's all it is. It's easy, and we're making it difficult.
I always think of the old Orioles shortstop that neither of you are old enough to remember, Mark Bellinger. That's why I always say it the wrong way. We've had we've had 2 questions about the weather in Boston, so I looked it up. Friday there's a high of 60 and a low of 42. Saturday's a high of 51 and a low of 46. Sunday tops out at 57 and a low of 47. So we're going to get like Clemson in February weather here, looks like. And there is chance of rain on Saturday and Sunday. So check the schedule. They're scheduled to play at 4:30 on Friday, 2 on Saturday, and 1 on Sunday. But with baseball and softball, you always have to check the schedule because they do crazy and wild things there. JP mentioned it. Cam Camarella is still batting 400, right on the nose. And by the way, so is Billy Amick. Both of those guys are batting 400. Camarella's got 31 RBI on the season. And Amick has 6 homers and 24 RBIs. Will Taylor at 326. Cooper Engel at 333. And Grice, who hit a monstrous shot, a couple of this week, 310, 10 home runs, 39 RBI. And JP mentioned teams batting 300. They got 6 innings, only 1 earned run from Ethan Darden on Friday. That was a big way to start the series. Clemson has struggled on Fridays most of the year. Then Garrison Ammons finished it up Saturday, as JP mentioned. Ryan Ammons back at the back end. Grice is not his best on Sunday, but he did enough to get him the win. And then Ty Olenchuk and Reed Garris had 3 2/3 scoreless innings to finish off the win on Tuesday over Kennesaw State. JP, the pitching staff rounding into shape?
Absolutely. I think it is. We talked about it before. I think Austin Gordon is a little more suited for Saturdays than he is Fridays. And Ethan Darden is not your typical Friday guy. Let's be honest. I mean, but he's a freshman, and he's a guy that pitched a lot of midweek starts early in the season, kind of been thrust into that Friday role kind of a little bit out of nowhere. He had the one bumpy start. He got it done last Friday. Another big spot this weekend. This is a big series. We'll see what happens. Like you said, Clemson's not had a lot of good luck on Fridays so far up until last weekend. But I do like the way this pitching staff is starting to, as you say, round into shape, especially now that you got some guys coming back healthy, and Ammons and Hughes, especially with Willie Weiss being a little bit inconsistent. And you're getting, the performances you're getting out of guys like Reed Garris. And, I mean, I know Nick Clayton had a rough outing last time out, but he's been dynamite most of the year. So again, you got some designated roles for some of these guys, and they're starting to excel in those roles. And I think it's been a big part of this turnaround we've seen over the last 4 weeks.
Friday is Ethan Darden versus Henry Leak. Saturday is Austin Gordon versus Chris Flynn. Sunday is Caden Grice against John West. Beef, what's your take on the pitching staff?
I love them. It's a consistent thing. I'm going to go back to that. I think JP hit it on the head there, but I just like that it's consistent. Now we know who's going out Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I have to believe it helps the team to know who they're throwing. It helps the pitchers know that they're going to be out there every Friday. There's nothing worse than the TBA twins, I don't think, for the fans and for the players themselves. I'm sure the players probably have an inkling that they're going to go, even if he announces TBA. But I just think it helps. It helps the consistency. It helps the role. It helps the continuity of the squad. I'm a psychologist. I can't even speak today at all when it comes to this stuff, and I really believe that it helps.
Jonathan wants to know thoughts on Monty. He's done a good job. I'm interested if he lasts in the future. His philosophy of the long ball is working. I love the hire of Monty Lee. It just didn't work out. I thought he was good. I thought Clemson needed to make a change at the time. I thought things had gotten stale, but it didn't work out for whatever reason. Some of the things we're mentioning, the pitching, just I don't know, wasn't managed well in my mind. JP, what's your thoughts on Monty?
Man, I love Monty Lee. Always liked Monty. Monty was, always good to me since I started covering Clemson. I think he is in the perfect role right now. If he's not going to be a head coach, let's put it like that, he's in the perfect role there as the assistant there at South Carolina. But when I think about Monty, I go back to this. What would this team this year with so little power, how successful would they be under Monty this year, playing station to station, waiting on the long ball? It worked. For a lot of the time Monty was at Clemson, offense wasn't the biggest problem. It was that pitching. And to me, it all goes back to the pitching under Monty. I think he hitched his wagon to Andrew C. And I don't think the pitchers developed at the pace they should have under him. I thought some of them actually regressed under him. And I think that was ultimately his downfall, was probably the pitching more so than the offense. But it is absolutely they are killing it in Columbia. Killing it.
Beef, quick thoughts on Monty before we let you talk about Boston College.
Yeah, I agree with JP. I think he's in the perfect role right now, unless he wants to be a head coach somewhere. I'm not sure Power 5 is going to be his next head coaching job. He may have to take that step up. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's naive and ignorant, but just a little shell-shocked, I guess, from the end of his career at Clemson. But I loved him at Clemson. I think he's loyal to a fault, and that's probably what was his ultimate undoing there with holding on to Andrew C.
All right, tell us about BC, Beef.
BC's a heck of a team. If you haven't, go watch JP's preview too on allclemsontigers.com on YouTube. Sorry, I got some series coming up on the screen for some reason. BC is 12. You can't hear me?
I got you.
Oh, you can. Okay,
yeah.
Good. I can't hear myself. BC 28-2, second ranked in the ACC Atlantic Division. They're 12-9 in the ACC. Notable, they're 8-5 at home. And 40 games. They've only played 13 games at home, obvious reasons. They've taken 2 of 3 from Pepperdine, which is a big win to start their year. Big series win. Notable wins: Tennessee. They beat Tennessee one time. They beat UConn 1 of 2. They were swept by Louisville, Clemson's next opponent. Just something to think about. And then just swept North Carolina last weekend. A couple things about Boston College. Start Henry Leak, like Marty said, he's a graduate student. He's 3-3, 6.30 ERA, 11 appearances, 40 innings pitched, 42 strikeouts, 12 walks. Opponents are hitting 321. Opponents are hitting 321 against him. This is the daggum thing, too. It's in my dang ear. Anyway, there you are. All right. Saturday, Chris Flynn. He's a right-handed pitcher, grad student. He's 6-1, probably their best pitcher, as JP says on his show. 3.66 ERA, 10 appearances, 51 2/3 innings pitched, 64 strikeouts. Big strikeout pitcher, 23 walks. Opponents hitting 257 against them, and he's going up against Austin Gordon. So that's a game I'm kind of wishy-washy on. And then Sunday, Boston College comes back with another right-handed pitcher, John West. He's a junior. He's 1-3, 6.88 ERA, 10 appearances, 34 innings pitched, 38 strikeouts, 18 walks. The walks aren't a lot, so the Tigers are going to have to put the bat on the ball this weekend. Boston College is hitting a team 277 as a team. They're hitting 277. They're led really by their second baseman and cleanup hitter, Patrick Roche. He's a junior. He's hitting 302. He's got 3 home runs, 29 RBIs. Leader in home runs is their left fielder. He hits 5th. Christian Leary, he's the left fielder. He's a junior. He's hitting 257, 10 home runs, 29 RBIs. And finally, they got Barry Walsh, the center fielder. He's a senior. He's hitting 321, 3 home runs, 25 RBIs, 10 of 11 stolen bases. This team will run. They're 49-59 in stolen bases in 40 games. I'm not a math major, but they will steal more than one per game. They've hit 43 home runs as a team up and down the lineup, other than the 9-hole hitter. They all have a home run at least. A little something interesting. It seemed every game that I looked at, they take out their Patrick Roche at second. They take out their second baseman, Patrick Roche, for Sam McNulty. Sam McNulty then comes in and plays shortstop, and then the shortstop, Vince Samini, then goes to play second base in every game that I looked at, which was a lot. And finally, their pitching team ERA 5.48. Again, JP said it, not lighting the world on fire, but their batting average 287 against, and they've given up 44 home runs. This just reminds me again of those northern teams, the Notre Dames of the world, the Boston College. I remember it last year or the year before. They just battle. I think Clemson was up big in a game, and BC just kept chinking at the armor, and they just kept battling and battling and battling. It just seems like that's what the northern teams do, because they're not going to beat you with the long balls. They're not going to beat you with the finesse. They're going to have to go and play small ball. They're going to have to play fundamentally sound to win. This is a very good BC team. It's going to be a very tough series this weekend for the Tigers.
Before we get to the prediction, Jonathan Hall says College Baseball Nation prediction of South Carolina hosting as a 3 national seed, Clemson second, Troy third, Maine fourth in Columbia. I don't want to see that.
We see it. How often do we see, maybe South Carolina playing in a Clemson regional or a prediction of Clemson playing in a South Carolina regional, and how often does it happen?
Yeah,
it's only happened once in my memory of 30 years.
Two in a row with Vanderbilt, right? But I brought this up to say that who knows, right? These guys are guessing just like you or any of the three of us could guess. But it's good to see Clemson's name in the 2 seed, wherever they are and whoever they play.
I think Clemson would if Coastal and South Carolina both end up hosting and Clemson's not hosting, because I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Clemson can come up and be a host if they keep winning at the pace they're winning. But let's say they're a 2 seed and South Carolina and Coastal are both hosting. I see Clemson in Conway before I see them in Columbia. Now, maybe those 2 regionals are matched up in the super regional round, but I see Clemson in Conway before I do Columbia.
Makes perfect sense. I agree with you 100%. Okay, Jason, you said it's time to adjust expectations. What's your expectations for this weekend in Massachusetts?
2 out of 3. I'm calling it 2 out of 3. I think Clemson's got to go up there and win 2 out of 3. Boston College has played 3 more games than Clemson has, so they got 3 games up on them in the win column, but they're even in the loss column. So you go up there and take 2 out of 3, you're in good shape in the Atlantic. And I think this team's good enough to do it. Absolutely.
Beef?
I think I'm going on last week's Ethan Darden, and I think Friday night is key. One thing that BC did last weekend was score in the first inning. Clemson has a propensity of giving up runs in the first inning, especially like Kennesaw State in games that maybe they shouldn't. So if they can limit that this weekend, I think they win Friday and Sunday. Saturday's a toss-up, so I'm going 2 out of 3 as well.
I'll say 2 out of 3 as well. Before we get out of here, I wanted to say thank you to Jonathan Hall for the comments. Jonathan, appreciate it. Greg Beasley also chimed in a couple times. Greg, thank you very much. Appreciate you guys being here. You can find Jason Priester's work on allclemsontigers.com. JP, sunglasses are not on this week. I haven't seen any sunglasses, but what are you working on over there at allclemsontigers.com?
Tonight I'm going to work. I talked to 2025 offensive lineman Braden Jacobs, who was at the spring game. So I got an interview with him coming up. Talked to Dabo Sweeney for a few minutes Friday night here in town at the Prowl and Growl. Going to write up a couple of things. He being here in town, he was talking about Xavier Thomas and DeMonte Capehart since they're a local kid. So probably see something about those guys coming up in the next few days too.
All righty. And Beef, new podcast on Message Board Genius this week?
Yeah, it'll come out tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock in the morning. So make sure set your alarm by listening to the boys of Message Board Genius and girl of Message Board Genius.
And she'll get on you if you don't mention her.
She will. Those LSU people are feisty.
For Jason Priester, allclemsontigers.com, and Casey the Beef Cregan from 111 different podcasts, I'm Marty Coleman. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully we'll see you next Thursday on the Clemson Baseball Show. Thanks, fellas.